Number 3, body paragraphs in depth. An in-depth explanation of the elements that make up a body paragraph. So there are 6 things that make up a body paragraph. There's your topic sentence, lead-in, evidence, citation, analysis, and then a concluding sentence. Here's a little checklist that's going to show up every few slides to keep track of where we are in going in detail into the body paragraph. So topic sentence. This is going to be the first sentence of your body paragraph. This tells the reader what your paragraph is going to discuss and also one of the topics that's addressed in your thesis statement. And typically when you hear English teachers say this should tie back to your thesis statement, this is one of those sentences that will do that. And similarly to your thesis statement, a topic sentence also has to be arguable. It is the controlling idea for this paragraph, and all other sentences are devoted to supporting this idea. The example that I'm going to be using is from an essay a student wrote about the hate you give. So the topic sentence here is, Star's family is a controlling factor in the power of her voice. Now when we look at this sentence, it's definitely arguable because someone could argue that Star's family does not have a say in her voice or how it's used. Now let's move on to the transition or the lead-in. A lead-in is something that briefly identifies who is talking, to whom they're talking, where and when in the plot the passage or evidence that you're going to share occurs. In MLA formatting, a comma follows your lead-in, preceding the quoted evidence. Here's an example. Lisa is not convinced that Star needs to make a statement on Khalil's death. When Uncle Carlos advises, she speaks with the detectives, comma. So when we look at this lead-in, it's addressing who is talking, Lisa, Star, and Uncle Carlos, what they're talking about, Khalil's death. And when we take a look at the next example for evidence, we'll see how this lead-in provides us enough context for the passage that is being shared in the essay. Quote. So a quote or evidence that you're going to share is a passage of your choosing that helps support your thesis statement. Evidence, also known as concrete details, uses quotation marks around the passage you chose to provide evidence that supports your claim. You must use quotation marks and proper citations to prevent plagiarism. So if you see in the example, put a parentheses, the author's last name, and a page number, with the punctuation following after the other end of the parentheses. Here's an example following the lead-in from earlier. Uncle Carlos sighs. Lisa, the sooner she talks to the detectives, the better. It will be a simple process. All she has to do is answer some questions. That's it. So the reason that I use this example specifically is that it's quoting a piece of dialogue. When you're quoting dialogue within a piece of evidence or a passage, it's often confusing to remember that you have to use single quotes to signify that a character is talking. So within the passage itself, you first use quotation marks. And since Uncle Carlos is the character speaking, he then says, single quote, the quote that he says within here. And there is a typo in here. There should be another single quote that ends this part where he addresses Lisa. And then you end with the regular quotation mark to finish off the passage that you're sharing. Analysis, also known as commentary, is when you're answering the so what or analyzing the evidence or concrete detail that you shared previously. In our case, you're going to need at least 2 sentences minimum to explain why you chose this quote or what this quote or evidence is showing and how it relates to your topic and thesis statement. Your analysis is answering the so what. Immediately after your evidence, explain how it supports your claim. You're going to analyze and close read how this evidence connects back to your topic sentence and thesis statement. Here's an example that builds off of the previous evidence shown. This conversation between Lisa, Maverick, and Uncle Carlos shows how Star lacks control over her own voice. Although she comes from a strong family, she lacks agency to speak out for herself. So if we return to the topic sentence, we can see how this analysis supports the controlling idea that Star's family is a controlling factor in the power of her voice. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, and that you can see how all of these 5 things tie together to support the thesis statement and your topic sentence. So now let's move to the concluding sentence. The concluding sentence or sentences summarizes the points that you made in this paragraph to emphasize the importance of the topic. It should also tie back to your thesis statement. This space also transitions readers from one idea to the next. So how does your first idea relate to the next one? And what I mean by this last part is, how does your first topic sentence tie into your next topic sentence? So in this paragraph, we were talking about how family is a controlling factor in Star's voice. The concluding sentences here, the student has written, Star has yet to realize the power in her voice. It is clear her insight on the shooting matters and will have an influence as tensions rise around Khalil's death. So what the writer has done in these two sentences is that they've addressed and summarized the importance of Star's voice and how it's going to connect what they're going to talk about in the next paragraph about issues and conversations around Khalil's death. So you're going to pause here and use the Google form to answer the following 4 questions. What purpose does the topic sentence serve? Check all that apply. What purpose does the concluding sentence serve? Check all that apply. How many sentences of analysis do you need? And what elements properly format a piece of evidence? Check all that apply. Pause here and resume after answering.